Ancient humans didn't have prisons. They had something far more terrifying. Everyone knowing exactly what you did. You're sitting in the middle of your camp, and no one will look at you. Not your brother, not your mother, not the friend you shared meat with last winter. 3 days ago, you stole from the group. Now you eat alone, sleep at the edge of the fire's light, and every pair of eyes that passes over you slides away like you're already a ghost. There is no cage. There is no guard. But you have never felt so trapped in your life. For over 95% of human history, there were no prisons, no police, and no written laws. Yet anthropologists studying surviving hunter-gatherer societies find serious violence was often rarer than in many modern cities. Punishment existed. It just didn't look like anything we'd recognize today. So how did people with no courts, no jails, and no badges keep each other in line? And why does the fear of being watched still control so much of what you do? Anthropologist Christopher Boehm spent decades studying band-level societies and found that the harshest punishment wasn't violence. It was social invisibility. Boehm documented that groups like the Kung San and various Amazonian foragers used prolonged silence, refusal of eye contact, and exclusion from shared meals as their primary tools of justice. A person could be physically present and socially erased at the same time. Because survival depended entirely on cooperation, sharing food, defending against predators, raising children collectively, being frozen out wasn't just embarrassing, it could be lethal. This is why, to this day, being ignored or excluded triggers a response in your brain almost identical to physical pain. Your nervous system still remembers a time when isolation meant death. When shame wasn't enough, ancient justice escalated to something researchers call leveling mechanisms. Boehm's fieldwork, along with later work by anthropologist Polly Wiesner on Zhu Huanxi conflict resolution, found that groups used public mockery and ridicule specifically aimed at anyone accumulating too much power or resources. A hunter who bragged about a kill might be openly laughed at by the entire camp, deliberately deflating his status before it became dangerous. This wasn't cruelty for its own sake. It was preventative maintenance for equality. This is why humiliation still cuts so deep today, and why so much modern humor is aimed at cutting down anyone who seems to be getting too big for the group. Exile was the next step up, and it was almost always more feared than death. Evolutionary anthropologist Kim Hill, who spent years with the Aceh of Paraguay, documented cases where banished individuals rarely survive long alone, without a group's collective knowledge of water sources, hunting grounds, and predator patterns. A lone human was extraordinarily vulnerable. Being cast out wasn't a fresh start. It was a slow-motion death sentence. This is why, even now, getting cut off from family or friend groups triggers a primal panic that seems wildly disproportionate to the actual danger. Your body is still running software built for a world where the group was the only thing standing between you and the dark. Physical punishment did exist, but evidence suggests it was far more controlled and communal than popular imagination assumes. Bioarchaeologist Deborah Martin, analyzing skeletal remains from prehistoric Southwest America, found patterns of injury consistent with ritualized, sanctioned violence, beatings administered by consensus rather than random brutality. The community decided together, and often multiple people participated, spreading both the responsibility and the message. No single person carried the guilt of punisher. This is one root of why modern justice systems still separate the judge, the jury, and the executioner. Distributing moral weight across roles is a strategy as old as punishment itself. Perhaps the most surprising finding is how much ancient justice depended on reputation traveling faster than the offender could run. Anthropologist Robert Boyd's research on cultural evolution shows that small, mobile bands relied on gossip as an actual enforcement mechanism. Information about who cheated, who hoarded, who couldn't be trusted, moved through a group with remarkable speed and accuracy. There was no escaping your own history. Everyone you might ever need to cooperate with already knew your name and your record. This is why reputation still feels like a form of currency today, and why a single bad review or rumor can feel more threatening than any formal rule ever could. Then came the turning point that rewired everything: permanent settlements. Once humans stopped moving in small bands and started living in dense agricultural towns, the old system collapsed. You could no longer rely on everyone simply knowing everyone else's history. Strangers arrived, populations swelled, and shame alone couldn't govern a population that size. This is when formalized law emerged, with codes like Hammurabi's around 1754 BCE, assigning specific written punishments to specific crimes. Because for the first time, justice needed rules that didn't depend on a community small enough to watch itself. We traded a justice system built on intimacy for one built on institutions, and something was lost in that exchange. Somewhere between the fire circle and the courtroom, punishment stopped being about being seen by your people and started being about being processed by a system. Maybe that's why so much modern anger at the system feels so hollow. We're still wired for a justice that looks us in the eye,